10 people. 10 people in 10 different places doing 10 different things, but all sharing one single thought. What if it really works? You see, in our little town of Saundhurst, California, there was an age-old tradition tied to a myth so old that its origins were not remembered, nor could they be traced back to their beginnings. It was just something that had become a Halloween tradition for some, a creepy story to share around Halloween campfires for others, and for a very unlucky chosen few, a Halloween nightmare, or so the stories go. What is known is that at 11:00 p.m. every Halloween, 10 of the townsfolk show up at the entrance to the town's only cemetery. It's not known for certain what the purpose for this gathering is, but rumour has it that they are all being allowed 1 hour to visit with someone they know, who has died and with whom, for reasons of their own, they have a desire to see once more. And from 11 p.m. until midnight, their dearly, or perhaps undearly departed appear to them, and communication is possible between the dead and those who have been left behind. Now mind you, these are simply the tall tales that seem to be almost a requirement in almost every small town in America, as it has been since the beginning of time. Nothing is known for certain about this annual ritual by the general townsfolk, because the none should, who return sure ain't saying a word. Not a one single danged gosh darned word. Now you heard it right. I did say 10 people showed up at the cemetery entrance, and yes, I did say 9 would leave. As to the soul that is never seen again, well, that's all there is. They are simply never seen again. As for those who do return, I've heard tales that back in the beginning some relatives or friends of the one who was lost might try to stir up a fuss, or wondering what happened to that soon, or daughter, or husband-wife, what have you. But if they stirred up too much trouble one morning, folks in the town wake up and find they just disappeared. Of course, not all of them disappear. Some just wake up one day, struck plumb dumb. Yep, wake up acting like all the sense in their heads. Took a late-night train to Hollywood and left behind a slobber monster with the IQ of a cooked carrot. But now those who loved ones don't come back to them by the final stroke of midnight, keep their questions to themselves, and not be trying to raise any ruckus. Folks seem to feel it's safer that way. Now what's that you asking? Well, of course you can see into the cemetery and you're darn tootin' if the whole population hasn't tried to get a gander at the happening that go on for that magical hour, but all they see is the 10 people form a circle holding hands and being what sounds like one of those sing-song poems, you know, like the little unsure always coming around with. And then a thick fog appears out of nowhere and just disappears, all those folks then, when the big clock down in the town, proper behind, to count off the 12 strokes of midnight, 10 people simply walk out of that their cemetery just the same as they walk themselves in there. But don't go a-wasting your time trying to get them 9 who return to talk, because it ain't gonna happen. Not one of those who return had ever said a single word about what goes on once that 4 rolls in. Not a single person, not a single word, not once, ever. And so the mystery forever remained for most of the people of this mostly forgotten town, except for those 10 who would meet at the cemetery gates each Halloween. Jimmy is one of the 10, and tonight is Halloween. And yes, Jimmy shared the same thought as the others chosen to meet at the cemetery gates. Thoughts of, what if it's real and what if it works? Jimmy had been chosen by Ronnie, whom he knew, and while they weren't exactly friends, they did attend the same high school. Ronnie was a senior, while Jimmy only a freshman. When Ronnie first approached Jimmy and told him he had been chosen as one of the 10, and that he would be granted 1 hour with his sister Carol, who had been found dead 3 years earlier at the age of 9, Jimmy at first laughed it off, thinking himself chosen to be the victim of one of the constant pranks freshmen were always being subjected to at the hands and minds of seniors, and basically laughed it off. But Ronnie was persistent and finally convinced Jimmy he was for real. Ronnie told Jimmy to meet him and the others at the cemetery gates at 10:45 p.m. and don't be late. He further explained that he would have only 1 hour with his loved one, and when the town clock started counting down the 12 strokes of midnight, he'd better be it of the cemetery, or he would start spending eternity with his loved once sooner than planned as the day off Halloween slowly edged towards night, and the time to meet the others at the cemetery grew nearer, Jimmy found himself growing more and more nervous. At last, the appointed time arrived, and Jimmy began making his way to the cemetery gates, where he discovered the others had already arrived. Ronnie, dressed in black as were all the others, as they had been instructed, welcomed the ones he had chosen and walked with them. They the cemetery gates and into the cemetery, where he asked them to form a circle and to join hands. He once more explained that they must take care to be at the cemetery by the final stroke of midnight, or they would remain forever. He then informed them that one of them would not make it. The others didn't think anything other than Ronnie was trying to scare them, so said nothing. Although a couple did make what they hoped were scary monster sounds, which Ronnie ignored. Ronnie explained that they would each in their own turn repeat the change of, "By the light of the noon on All Hallows Eve, give me 1 hour free from my grief, bring forth," and here they were, to enter the name of the person they wanted to see from the other side. Ronnie then said he would now choose the first, and called on a girl named Cindy, a cute little blonde, who, like Jimmy, was also a freshman in high school. Cindy stepped forward and repeated the chant of, "By the light of the moon on All Hallows Eve, give me 1 hour free from my grief, bring forth my father Tom." To everyone's amazement, a dog rolled in, but through the food, they could see a shadow begin to appear, and Cindy squealed with delight and yelled, "Daddy!" as she cheerfully ran towards her father. Jimmy was the next to be called, and after repeating the chant, his sister appeared, and for an hour they laughed, cried, played, and Joe's. And finally Jimmy said, "I guess I just wanted to say I love you one more time," and as his sister opened her mouth to respond, the town clock began counting of the 12 strokes of midnight, so whatever she planned on saying was forgotten, and she instead yelled, "Go Jimmy, run!" as she slowly faded away. Jimmy ran as fast as he could, and was or the cemetery gates before the sixth come had finished, but hadn't gotten fast, when he heard what sounded like arguing and turned to see Cindy frantically trying to push Ronnie aside as he continued to block her from exciting the cemetery gates. As the 9th stroke was sounded out, Jimmy ran back to try and help Cindy move Ronnie out of the way, asking Ronnie, "What the hell are you doing? Let her out!" But Ronnie easily pushed Jimmy, who landed rough and hard on his, but just as the final chime sounded. Jimmy turned to watch as Cindy's image slowly faded until it was gone entirely. Jimmy got up and approached Ronnie, demanding to know if Ronnie had lost his mind, and told Ronnie, "You as good as killed her. I seen it. What is wrong with you?" To which Ronnie calmly replied, "A sacrifice must be made this year, as it has been every year, as it will be in years to come. Tell you what, hero next year you get to decide, because y'all want to know how the leader gets picked every year. It's really quite simple, and you won't go to the cops or anyone or say a single word about this to anyone. Not one single word to anyone, ever, and next Halloween you will pick the 10 and choose the sacrifice, or you be the one who fades away, and do you why? Like I said, it's quite simple." And with that, Ronnie gently reached out and touched Jimmy on the shoulder, and with an evil grin said loud enough for only Jimmy to hear, "Tag, you're it."